Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. It's Tuesday night. It's well past 9 p.m. We had some things going on tonight, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I am behind the steel curtain editor Dave Schofield coming at you again for the Scho Bro Show. And with me, as always, is my big brother, Rich. Rich, how's it going?
Welcome to the big show.
Yeah, you were, now were you coaching tonight?
Yes.
Yes, you were. I know it was Kyle's playoff baseball game, and I thought it was the team that you coached.
Actually, it was a team I hadn't been coaching, but was called into service the past couple weeks.
Gotcha. So it was the playoffs, and I'm like, well, I could go ahead and go on at the same time, but without you, to me, it just wasn't worth it. I'm like, I gotta wait around for the bro so we can do this right. So we're glad those of you that are joining us already. Yes. We got some people jumping in on YouTube and Facebook. What's up?
You had to wait.
I had to wait. Yeah. So sorry. Yeah, you had to wait for us tonight. But Rich, we are in it. We are in it. We talked about it last week. That by the time, like when we're back next week, the Steelers will have actually practiced. Training camp will have started. Okay. They haven't put on pads yet. And honestly, that's kind of what the whole idea of our show is going to be tonight, is about the difference when the pads come on. But the only thing to really talk about, it's not like there's big breaking news or anything like that, other than the Steelers are practicing. It's been football in shorts, but they're done the ramp up period. Pads come on tomorrow. Fans are at the stadium. Any major impressions or anything you want to bring up from what we've seen so far since the Steelers took the field last Thursday?
Okay. I got a couple things that I can say. Okay. About things I've seen and rumblings around practice. But just remember that these are all things from, practicing in shorts. Yeah. So Pat Freiermuth is looking nice. If he can look this good when the pads go on, we're going to be talking.
All right. But before you go into someone else, you want to bring up someone else? Can I say something about Freiermuth? I want to ask you.
Go ahead. Yes.
Kevin Colbert spoke to the media today, and he brought up what Coach Tomlin says every time Freiermuth makes one of those great catches and great plays. Did you see what he said?
Oh, I don't remember.
He said, yeah, but can he block? And, and that's bottom line is, let's wait till Wednesday. But no, you want to. It's not like you don't want to see that stuff in these practices. You do, but you have to put it in context as well. Go ahead, keep going.
Exactly. Just things that you're seeing. TJ Watt is TJ Watt. His motor is always going 100 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. Liking what I'm seeing all around for the most part, with guys going through drills and things are looking good, but we won't know the truly what's going on until they start hitting each other. Yep. I'm going to ask a question about what about some of the players that we haven't seen as much? I mean, they're taking the same approach to Ben Roethlisberger of a full practice, a half practice, an off practice. Now, today, Ben was excused where he was not there for personal reasons, but he will be back practicing, which I think is interesting because a lot of times the first day in pads is an off day for Ben, but it's not going to work out that way this time. So Ben's been out some. I know they've been holding Zach Banner back some. I know Kevin Dotson was dealing with something, held back some. I'm pretty sure the centers are back. I'm pretty sure I saw J.C. Hassenauer out on the field today. I don't know if he did other stuff. And Finney was back because there was a day that they didn't have any centers because Kendrick Green was taking care of something. He was in Florida for something. Seems like Devin Bush has been there for most of the stuff. What are your thoughts on the guys that they're Stephon Tuitt they're easing into because he missed OTAs due to the tragic loss of his brother and taking care of his family. Any thoughts on these guys that haven't practiced as much or anything? Are you concerned about that or? No, not until, because we got so much time before the regular season rolls around, that's not bothering me too much yet. Especially because most of the guys that's going on with are minus the 1 day Kendrick Green. Most of them have been your vets where you pretty much know what you've got in these guys. If you had a lot of your younger guys that were missing, the guys that you're really needing to evaluate more, it would bother me more. Yeah. But them easing back into things, they know it. There's no surprises on what Stephon Tuitt is.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I mean, Coach Butler talked about that. He spoke on Friday. And he was saying, we know we got into it and everything else. He'll be there. He'll be fine, and he's a big weapon. My biggest thing is Zach Banner coming off the knee. I understand they want him to take it easy. They don't want to do too much. They don't want to, have a setback, but at the same time, I'm like, I just hope he's ready. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep.
Because, there's a lot of question marks at tackle from the starting guys on down. So before we dive into this topic, anything else? Are you ready to talk padded practices?
Oh, let's talk padded practices, because that's when we're going to really find out the answers to more of our questions.
Okay. To set this up, I'm going to tell a little story. So that'll pretty much finish up the first half.
That'll finish up first half of the show.
Just kidding. No. Some people, if you have never played, full contact padded American football, you might not understand what it's like to put on the pads, if you know what I mean. I'm going to give an example, not from my playing time, but from my coaching time. I coached 7 seasons of high school football, and I remember one of my first seasons there, when we went through summer conditioning and everything else, and we had a player that came out. I'm not wanting to pick on him or anything, because it just kind of goes to show how it is. The kid, he was one of the honor students, everything else, but he was wanting to come out, play football, see what he could do, everything else. He was at every conditioning all summer. He was there. He was putting in the work. He was running hard. He was doing everything that he could. He was all ready and rearing to go. We get to the first day of practice, and you were out there and you were in the pads, and we were stretching, and he had to sit out for a bit. I don't know if it was anxiety. I don't know if it was a panic attack. I don't know if it was an asthma issue, but just stretching in the pads was completely different than anything that we had done all summer with the conditioning and everything else. There is just a difference when you put those pads on. Everything is different. Even before you make the first hit, when you put those shoulder pads on, when you got the helmet and the shoulder pads and everything, it's just different. It's just how it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's kind of what we're talking about. We're like, yeah, the Steelers have been practicing, and they're like, oh, well, they downplay football in shorts, but contact means a lot. So let's see what this is really about, because it's not just, oh, are they physical enough? When you put those pads on, it's like you're on it's like your next level. It's like you're on the center stage. So for these young players and rookies, when they put their pads on for the first time in an NFL practice, it's not even just, this is part of the reason why sometimes they would hold Ben Roethlisberger out the first padded practice. And that is some of these young guys. And I had some people give me flack about this, like, oh, they're professionals, blah, blah, blah. They've done this forever. I'm like, this is their first time putting on pads as a professional. These guys are going to be ramped up. They're going to be ramped up. And sometimes they're a little bit too ramped up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes they'll hold out someone like a Ben Roethlisberger out of practice, because you're like, the last thing you want is the bottom guy on the depth chart at linebacker, next thing you know, coming in and laying out your franchise quarterback because he's all ramped up for getting his chance at the NFL. But at the same time, you want guys to be poised and everything else. So there's a lot that we're looking for, and it's just going to be different. So this is what we did. We coordinated this more than what we've normally done with our other lists. We've been doing top 5 lists of everything that we've been with these shows lately, and we've been surprised. Now, the reason we coordinated this is we actually made a bigger list, and we went through our list and we crossed out repeats. We didn't want to bring up the same 5 players. We wanted to talk about different players. So we adjusted our top 5 lists a little bit to make sure that, like, my number 5 wasn't your number 2. So we're going to be, when we go through this, it's going to be a new player every time we bring someone up. And we are looking at the top 5 players that we're looking forward to the most in the first padded practice. Now, we're not talking about the first game. We want to know what we're talking about with the first padded practice. We're talking about practice.
Not a game.
Not a game.
Not a game.
Not a game. We're not talking Hall of Fame game yet. We'll talk about that next week. We're talking about practice.
Practice.
Now, by setting it up this way, there's kind of some positions that are going to be left out a little bit. I mean, it'll be kind of nice to know what it's like to see Big Press taking a kick with his full gear on and maybe some guys rushing at him. But like they're going to run into him in practice. Punter's probably not going to make the list. What's the other one that's not going to make the list, Rich?
Quarterback, because they're not going to hit them either.
Quarterback, yeah. They'll put the pads on. But, I mean, really, you want them to be used to the pads, but it's not like these guys are going to take hits in practice because you don't do that to your quarterbacks, you know? So it's not like, oh, I want to see what Ben's going to do with this pad. No. Or what Haskins going to do with it. No, it's not like they're going to – it's not like TJ Watt's going to come flying across the line and lay out Ben Roethlisberger to say, all right, can you take the hit? It's not that they're not going to get bumped or anything into and have to deal with real pressure, but it's still not going to be quite to that level. So we're going to break down the 5 players that we're looking forward to seeing the most, that we really want to see how it changes and how it ramps up with the pads on. Sound good, Rich?
Sounds good.
You ready for this?
Y'all ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yep. I'm ready.
Yeah, Justin Conway, he said, I asked you about pads today and you replied on Twitter. I asked because, like you said, it's a different thing when the pads come on. Yep, I did. He asked the question on the tweet, the BTSC tweet on one of my articles, and I made sure I let him know pads are coming on. It's great. So, Rich, let's count them down backwards. Number 5. Number 5?
My number 5 was second-year guard Kevin Dotson.
Yes, I want to see what he can do. I mean,
we've got really high expectations.
Yes. And now he's been easing into – he's one of those players that's been easing into stuff because he was dealing with something. But I think he's going to be able – if something happens when we come out tomorrow and find out, well, you know, he's still a little dinged up and everything, we might be disappointed in this one.
Yeah, could be.
But if he's able to get out there and go, then he's one of these guys that tell me why he was on he was on my list too. So tell me why he was at this point on your list.
I can't do that yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, because you don't want to be any compare. Okay. Well, then just tell me why you wanted to. What is about you? What is it about him you want to see?
We saw him start several games last year, and there were people that were arguing that at the end of the year he should have been a starter on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see that we've still got that guy because that's the guy I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see the guy that we were seeing last year that everybody was like, man, he's the best lineman. We got to get this guy. You know, he should be on the field. That's the guy. That's the guy I want to see right off the bat.
Yes, and I want to see if it's different with a new coach. If it's even more nasty than what I felt you got from someone like Dotson last year, based on having a new offensive line coach. That's a good one. I'm going to go with my number 5, and my number 5 is a player that this would probably be Shannon White's number one. He's in the fan club, and that is one cornerback, James Pierre. I want to see what he does out there in the pads because he's known more as a guy that's more on the physical side. You know, he's the guy that can bring the physicality to this position, and he didn't have a big sample size last year, so you'll want to see what he can bring right away.
The small sample size was spectacular.
Oh yes, it was. He was. I mean,
the small sample
way
size
up there
was spectacular.
Absolutely.
If he's another one, if we get that guy all the time, whoa, look out! You know, we've got something there. I mean, come on, a 6'2" corner.
Yeah,
you got to be. Yeah,
absolutely. So, I mean, people were worried about the Steelers at the cornerback position, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be, but how great would it be is if instead of wondering who's going to play, that you have to ask yourself more of who's going to sit.
Yeah.
That you have capable players that you could put on the field. And you're like, oh man, who's not going to get as many snaps because when they're not in sub package, they're just not going to be out there and stuff. So that's what I want to see. I want to see, because if the Steelers have something in James Pierre, that is a complete difference maker in what everyone thinks about the Steelers secondary. Don't you agree?
Yep. Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
So that's why I went there. Do you want to go ahead and roll on into your number 4?
Number 4. Making a move from, what was it last year? 15 games started?
Yep.
15 games started at right tackle, moving to left tackle. Would we be one Chooks Secor for? Got to see what the big man Chooks can do. You know, he was touted this week by Kevin Colbert, you know, saying that, hey, we actually felt he was more of a left tackle when we drafted him, and that kind of showed, you know, Zach Banner beat him out at right tackle. We really think he's more of a left tackle. You know, we're hearing all those right kind of things from the coaches and now even the GM. Now I got to see it on the field.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I happen personally to kind of agree with the coaching staff and the GM in that. From what I was seeing in videos from camp last year, I felt the same thing. That Zach Banner was your bigger, mauler right tackle. Chooks has really nice footwork. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But until they put the pads on and we see, you know, him out there trying to block on Ben's blind side, I don't know what I have until I see it.
You could have great footwork and great technique in drill work.
Yep.
But when you actually have to get it done on the field, you can't get it. It's also very difficult to not have good technique and then be able to just get it done just because you're a guy that when you put the pads on, you're a different guy. You've got to have the technique too. So you've got to bring it together to where now that guy's really trying to get past you and rip your quarterback's head off. Well, at least get past you to wrap up the quarterback, if you know what I mean.
Correct.
And make you look bad. And can you get it done? I think you're right. Yeah. Kevin Colbert said today that if the battle would have been at left tackle last year, he thinks Chooks would have won it because that's his natural position. Jeffrey Benedict is broken down. How in college, you know, he went up against TJ Watt and Bosa. Like I switch the two first names all the time. I'll say the wrong one. Doesn't matter. They're both really good. Whenever he was at Western Michigan and he did very well against those players in college. So it's not like he hasn't gone against elite talent. He just didn't see it all the time in college. So now this is going to be his first chance to play left tackle.
Jeffrey's breakdown of both he and Banner last year during all, you know, going into camp, Jeffrey's film breakdown on them was excellent.
Yeah.
And kind of helped sell me on, you know, when the coaching staff was saying those kinds of things and people were kind of saying, hey, Chooks is more left tackle. Jeffrey's breakdown of the film made me be like, yeah, I can see why they're all saying that.
Yeah, I see that as well. I definitely did. Well, I'm going to go ahead and jump in and give you my number 4. And in case you guys didn't realize it, there's kind of a little bit of a positioned theme early on in our lists, because who I would like to see is 5-time Pro Bowl right guard, Trey Turner, because he's had some moments not so great in practices, they said, but he's still learning the system and what the Steelers are doing. So I can understand where that can happen, especially with football and shorts. But when you get those pads on, I want to see what kind of Turner are the Steelers possibly going to get. Are they getting the 2020 version, or are they getting 2019 was
okay.
or are they getting the even earlier than that? I mean, he was still a Pro Bowler in 2019, but definitely not. You don't want to see what you had in the 2020 version out west. So I really want to see what the Steelers might have in Turner. And the problem is we're not really going to get to see this. All we're going to do is mainly get reports, but it's going to be a different kind of – you're going to be looking at different things. I want to hear what's going on with Trey Turner. And is he – because even in drills, you're now talking about physical blocking drills. Like when I was coaching, I loved – doing drills. Basically, we would do this zone blocking drill where we would put a defensive lineman and a linebacker, and then we would have 2 offensive linemen. We would line them up over one of them, and we would basically tell the lineman, is the hole to your left, to your right, or in between you? And you guys had to figure out the blocks based on where the defense was going to, where they showed up to play and open up the hole. And we would even run a running back through there. It was just a fantastic drill. It doesn't have to be full teamwork. You could just see what these guys are doing in those kind of things. But I want to see, is Trey Turner, has he been able to pick up on enough since minicamp, when he was there? And has he been able, no, he wasn't at minicamp. He was picked up after minicamp. Has he been able to pick up on stuff since minicamp, just with the playbook and everything, and been able to learn enough over the last week in order to have it go out there? Any thoughts on Turner?
No, I think you pretty much hit all my same question marks that I'm wanting to see from him. So,
yeah. So, but I mean, because his success is really going to dictate. I mean, but you can say that about almost any of these linemen. You're like, wow, if so-and-so struggles, it could be a problem. So, speaking of which, you want to go on to your next one?
Sure. Continuing with the theme, my number 3 would be, I would like to see the incredible Zach Banner.
Yeah. If we get to see him, yeah.
That's right, because it's still questions as to when they're going to let him put on the pads and go, I think. But
well, or even how much we'll see him, if you know what I mean. It still might be that they're holding him out of some stuff. But
it's really neat from him wanting to see that he's come back, is fully healed from the injury, and comes back ready to kick butt at right tackle, like he was ready to kick butt at right tackle last year, and got 2 for a tiny little bit.
Yeah, I think with Zach Banner, it's going to come down to trust. And it's his trust in his knee.
Yeah.
Because even if the knee is healed, if you don't trust it, it's going to be a problem. Sometimes you trust the knee too much when it's not healed, and that could be a problem. But I think it's more going to be, is he going to be able to do the things that he wants to do and needs to do in order to be the Steelers starting right tackle? I think you're exactly right there.
Yeah. Is he going to be able, is he going to feel good about getting low and driving with those legs?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If he's comfortable with that, then I have a lot less question marks about Zach Banner. But if this injury causes him to either, play a little higher or maybe not drive as hard, then there could be some worries there. So I would like to see him in the pads and see what he can do.
Absolutely. So now I'm going to ask you a question. Are you looking for, like, increased involvement with Banner? Is that what you would ultimately like to see? Like, hey, he can get out there and do a few things on Wednesday, but you know what? Thursday he's able to do a little bit more. Oh, Friday he's back out there.
Well, that's what I want to say. Right.
You know?
Like it won't surprise me a bit if the Steelers just ease him in, that he's doing a few things here and they see how he reacts and he does a little more and they see how he reacts and he does a little more and see how he reacts. Wouldn't surprise me a bit.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
We'll see. We will see. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do my number 3 here before we then go ahead and take our break. My number 3 is I'm going away from the offensive line for now, and that is it's funny because we have a lot of positions that kind of overlap. I want to see Antoine Brooks Jr. If he's right now, and like we say, right now, they did the depth chart on that was, I'm pretty sure that was Saturday. I know I did a podcast covering it. I can't remember if it was Saturday or Sunday. It all runs together now. But when they released it, they only had 2 players listed as nickel corner right now, and that was Antoine Brooks Jr. and Arthur Millette. Yep. So Antoine Brooks Jr., who was a safety. This was also a guy. He appeared in 4 games last year for the Steelers. That's all. He was on the practice squad for most of the season. And he's the guy getting the first shot. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying you need to see an awful lot out of this guy, particularly, in pads, being physical in there, because if he's going to play it more like, if he's going to be like the quote unquote Mike Hilton role, because got to keep yielding back to Jeffrey. He breaks these things down on film so much that he's like,
he does.
Cam Sutton is not the nickel corner that Mike Hilton is. He's not the physical guy. He's not the blitzer. If you ask Cam Sutton to do what Mike Hilton did, he's not going to be good at it. And if you were to ask Mike Hilton to do what Cam Sutton does, he's not going to be good at it. He's just got a different skill set. So as much as I say, you could slide Sutton into nickel and put Pierre on the outside, that might not be what the Steelers want out of that position. That might be why they're having an Antoine Brooks Jr. there. So I really want to see what he's doing out there, because I want to see what the Steelers see. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Yes.
So, what's your impression so far and everything with Brooks Jr. from stuff you've heard out there, if you know what I mean?
I haven't seen enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really why that was a good selection by you there, because he's really one. It's like, I need to see more.
Yeah.
And the only place we're going to see it right now is in practice and into these preseason games.
Yes.
And as you said, if we've already penciled him in as the starting
guy to get the first crack at it, because Coach Tomlin said, well, he's going to start the Hall of Fame games. You can write a story about that. That's one thing he said. Because apparently he had a nice interception in the first practice against Ben Roethlisberger playing in a slot.
Yes.
So that was like the only report of an actual on-field play that we really got much from that first practice last week. So anything else out of your 3 or my 3 that you want to say before we head into the break?
Nope. I'm good. Let's go ahead and hop into the break so we can come out on the other side and get these last few.
Finish this up and see what else we have to do. So if you're listening to us on the audio side, go ahead and click on over to part 2. If you are here with us on YouTube or Facebook, don't go anywhere. We're just going to pause for a few seconds, and then we will be right back with part 2. Pittsburgh Steeler fans, we are back with part 2 of the Scho Bro Show. This is editor of Behind the Steel Curtain, Dave Schofield, coming at you. I don't even remember who I am anymore. I'm trying to remember all this stuff. I'm a little bit flustered. I'm a little bit fun.
I keep trying to forget who you are, but
I know you've been doing that for 40 some years now. But with me as always, here's my big brother Rich, who is going to take any moment that he can to take a shot, just because that's what brothers do. Rich, you still doing all right?
Especially big brothers. Big brothers always take pot shots at the little brothers.
Of course. And the little brothers always take it like a man. Not always.
No. No,
not always.
You did not always take it like
did not always take it. Yeah.
When we were
but
younger.
remember,
anyway.
Remember when the little brother then became bigger than you? That really changed the dynamic of the relationship, didn't it?
Yeah, I bet you don't remember the time when you were just about the size of me, and I don't know what it was, but I know where we were. I know it was wintertime. We were outside in the backyard, and I pounded you pretty good because I knew it was probably my last shot to put you in line.
Why don't I remember this?
Oh, I do. Because you probably didn't push me far enough to deserve what I ended up doing to you, but I was like, you know what, this is my shot to get in there before he gets way bigger than me. So I took it.
Yeah. I don't remember that, but I definitely remember that moment with
you were probably 10 or 11.
with the younger of our sisters. When she's like, when our mother kept reminding her, you're not going to be able to, it's like, he's going to be bigger than you someday. Nuh-uh. And I was much younger with her with that, I remember. But I just remember I just had enough, and Mom just sat in the kitchen and just let us hash it out. And I just kind of put a thumping on her.
Oh,
she was trying to take my chair.
I remember that one too. And because I remember Mom just laughing and be kind of looking at her. She's like, nope.
Yeah, you went to the kitchen.
She was like, nope, I'm letting this play out. I was like, okay.
Yep. So that's always
just so
okay.
Just so you know, at that point in time, I was rooting for you.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
I wasn't the last time I was putting my last licks in on you because, you know.
I had to get a little bit bigger before I could do that. We had more of a gap between us. Okay. But that was a little bit of fun. This is the family show. This is the kind of show that we did. Okay. Jennifer says, your poor mom. Yeah, it is what it is. But no, we did all right. We had good family times, and we're all Steeler fans, and we all have a great time talking about it now. But that's just kind of how this is. You know, sometimes you're watching a football game and a wrestling match breaks out. That would happen occasionally, or things like that. But that's the kind of things we talk about here on the Scho Bro Show. But what we were talking about in part one, in case you stumbled across part two and saying, what are these guys doing? We're talking about, it kind of fits because we're talking about nastiness and hitting and everything of how it's going to be different in Wednesday's practice because the pads come on. If you're listening to this in podcast form, the pads might already be on because it's going to happen Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. That's when it's going to be. So we're running down the 5 players we were looking forward to seeing the most in pads and what they could do in pads, not in football and shorts. So far, Rich, do you want to go ahead and recap the 3 players you've done?
Recap of mine was number 5, Kevin Dotson, number 4, Chuks Okorafor, and number 3, Zach Banner. Anybody see a theme to mine?
Yeah, Rich went all O-line.
I want to see the trench.
Yes.
What's going on in the trenches?
Which is funny because I went O-line as well, but my other 2 were defensive backs because my number 5 was James Pierre, my number 4 was Trey Turner, and my number 3 was Antoine Brooks Jr. Now, just to remind people, in case you're listening to this when I missed the first half, that we actually made sure we coordinated this time and we drafted these players to get our top 5 lists because we didn't want any repeat. So Rich took his number 1, I took my number 1. He took his number 2, I took my number 2, just because we wanted to have more players to talk about because we even have more we could talk about other than these 10.
Yes, we do.
Let's go ahead and continue with these 10 because Rich, I really like your number 2 player. I really do because I thought this was a great choice. So
correct.
Go for it.
All right. My number 2 would happen to be 2nd round draft pick, Pat Freiermuth. He, so far in the practices and shorts, has been playing very well.
Yeah.
Now I want to see what he can do with the pads on.
Yeah, because we're only seeing – you really want – what are the 2 main things you get out of a tight end? What do you want? Really? No, you don't get them from all of them. Yep.
No, you want to see him catch the ball, and you want to see him knock people over.
There you go. Now, it's funny because you say you want to see him knock people over. But you
got to block.
Some people think about that as being, when you have the ball. That includes blocking. That was a great way to say it, knock people over, because it could mean once you have the ball or whenever you're just called on to block. So
want to see the physicality behind, not just you want to say that, as I call it, the pretty part of the position, the being able to move and make nice catches and run with the football. No, you got to be able to lay a slobber knocker on somebody.
There you go. That's lay the slobber knocker. Gotta love that one. Yeah, that's how you got to put it. No, that's what we want to see. I want to see him as a blocker, because we know that Eric Ebron is not known for his blocking. He probably did more blocking last year for the Steelers than he ever had. And people were like, really? Oh, he was not a good. Did you see him in his career before he got to Pittsburgh? He wasn't even really ever asked to do it. If you really watch him.
And when he did, he looked more like a bullfighter.
Yeah.
Ole!
But trust me, if you want to, that's something I should have had Jeffrey do, but
Jeffrey can do it.
Jeffrey does everything. I want to see Eric Ebron as a blocker with the Steelers versus how Eric Ebron blocked when he wasn't before he got to the Steelers. Because I personally think, just from the eye test, from when I was, from the clips that I've paid attention to, that I think he was better with the Steelers. I'm not saying he's great. I'm just saying he's better. So that's interesting. But I really want to see if Freiermuth can be that blocker. Can he be the Heath Miller type of player?
That's exactly what I was just going to say. If he is the Heath Miller type of player, the guy that can catch the ball and the guy who can run block, if he can do it all, we got to steal.
Exactly. And here's the thing, and people are like, or is he a Jesse James? I want to see him more of a blocker than Jesse James. Because seriously, I do. I want to see if he can do that, because I also think that he offers a little bit more athleticism, even though we all know that Jesse James caught that ball. And unfortunately, it's reported that some people wanted to see him come back to Pittsburgh. Some of his comments when he left made me think that I don't know that we'll ever see him back. But he apparently did sign with the Bears. But who's to say that he makes the team? I don't know. But I just want to see what the Steelers have there. I mean, because you can see the catch. I mean, there was even some video from today's practice. If you haven't seen it, you can go into go to behindthesteelcurtain.com, your one-stop shop from all things Pittsburgh Steelers. You can go into the training camp tracker, and there's some tweets in there that has some clips. One of them was of the tight ends. So that was some pretty good stuff. I love that choice. I love saying that it was Freiermuth. He was actually really high on my list. He just wasn't my number one, and that's why you got him as your number two.
I like this comment, because this was the comment made that it comment. Hey, that's great, but can you block?
And that's my buddy Chris.
I know you missed it. You missed earlier. He had commented. He's like, "Hey, Dave, I actually made it to a live."
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I haven't. I know Chris from my softball league. I was actually out at the fields tonight, but his team wasn't out there tonight. Jeff's team was out there tonight. I actually saw Jeff at the softball fields. But that's good to see her. I think not next week, but the week after we play his team. So we'll be not Jeff's team, Chris's team. You guys don't.
Sorry, you got to say something. Hey, what's up, Russ? Haven't seen you for a while.
Oh, hey, Russ is here. All right.
Yep.
So some people, this actually sometimes works out better that we got started later.
I know.
Like, oh yeah, we caught it. But I also know some people that are probably like, yeah, I can't stick around. It's too late. So we apologize for those that are dealing with that. Time for my number two player.
It's Kyle's fault.
Kyle's fault. Yep. Hashtag blame Kyle.
There you go. Hashtag blame Kyle.
Blame
exactly.
Kyle. All right. My number two. This is who I want to see. We already talked about one ACL injury return.
Correct.
I want to see the other. I want to see Devin Bush in pads.
Yep.
I want to see, from what I have seen from the reports,
heard,
is that he hasn't been, I think that he's been doing more than Zach Banner. Even from what I've seen. I've seen several times where, Banner's not involved with the linemen doing the drills that they're doing. I haven't seen Devin Bush being held out of anything. Now, just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean that it hasn't happened.
Right. Exactly.
But all I can do is go on the small bits and pieces that I have seen. But I want to see, if you get the pads on, can he go out there and move and be the player that he was for the first 21 games of his career?
Yeah. Is he still that sideline to sideline, wreak all kinds of havoc?
Yeah.
Put it Ryan Shazier type of middle linebacker.
Absolutely. So, because I've said it so many times, but this is a new show, so I'll say it again. He really made a big difference when he went down last year. And I say that the sacks dropped off, even though he wasn't the one getting them. It's just what the Steelers could do. And it's not that the other guys didn't step up and play great, but it's the things that Devin Bush can do that others can't do.
It's the coverages and plays that Keith Butler couldn't dial up the way he could when Devin Bush was on the field.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that, you play, I've said it so many times, you coach and you do things to where you try to bring out the strengths in your players. So therefore, asking another player to do what Devin Bush does when that's not their strength isn't wise to do. So you can't do the same things when you don't have Devin Bush out there. So therefore, I want to see Devin Bush out there. I really want to see what he can do. I don't know that we're going to see him in the Hall of Fame game. So I just kind of want to see what happens with him in practice. So we good?
Yep.
Anything else you want to say about Devin Bush?
The fingers are crossed that the knee's as good as what they're saying it is.
Absolutely. So let's get to these number ones. You guys might have an idea what some of them are. So Rich, I like your number one. Your number one's a good one.
My number one is probably currently in the locker room with the pads on, just waiting for 1:30 for 1:30 to roll around. Actually, probably there with the pads on in the weight room, lifting weights, working out, and that would be
walking on his hands.
That would be one Najee Harris.
Yes,
everything, even through these first unpadded practices, everything we're hearing on this guy is that we're getting everything we hoped for and maybe more.
Absolutely.
But there's only one way to know that for sure.
Got to put the pads on.
Put the pads on and do it.
Yeah.
Put the pads on.
And I got to bring it up, even though it's in all caps. Stop shouting at people. But anyway, I'm going to do it. Young boy, 24. Najee versus Bush should be epic. If you watched the Steelers, the standard, the YouTube series they've been doing, I'm pretty sure it was the last episode. I don't think they've had another episode since, but it was doing stuff with mini camp and whatnot. This Coach Tom's basically saying this is a matchup they're going to put out there a lot in camp, and that is Najee Harris versus Devin Bush. And you're talking about backs on backers. You're talking about other kinds of drills. Those are two guys that they want to see what they can both bring. I can't wait. I really can't wait.
I think part of that too is because the coaching staff looks at it and knows these are the two guys we need to push each other.
Yeah.
Because really, maybe Ant Mac could push Devin Bush a little bit, but not like Najee Harris is going. Najee Harris has a little more physicality to push him.
Yeah.
Versus speed. And really, if you're talking backs that, again, you're talking basically who's pushing Bush. Like I said, Ant Mac could probably push him on the speed side of things. Najee can push both on the speed and a little more with the physicality. That's how those guys get better, is getting best on best.
Yeah. And the other thing that we haven't even mentioned when it comes to, we're kind of talking about it, but to specifically mention is that seeing once he put the pads on, what you see from Najee Harris when he doesn't have the football in his hands. I don't want to just see him with the ball. Can he, elude these guys or take the hit and fall forward and gain 2 or 3 yards or stuff like that? I want to see what he's doing in pass protection.
Yeah. I want to see what happens when Devin Bush blitzes, and Najee's got to pick it up.
Exactly. That's why they do that backs on backers drill.
I know.
And things like that. So we're ready for that. And why would you not want to see? Unless you're talking about it being a quarterback, why would you not want to have one of your top people that you want to see with the pads on be your number one pick?
Of course.
So yeah. So that it's funny. That's what you went. You went. Your top two went pick 1, pick 2.
Yes.
And to no one's surprise, because you all figured it out in the live chat, my number one, because we have to round out the offensive line,
of course,
was the Steelers' pick number 3. And that is, I want to see in pads, I want to see Kendrick Green. I do. I want to see Kendrick Green, what he can do out there in practice leading up to the Hall of Fame game. And then I want to see what he's doing in the Hall of Fame game. He's the guy I want to see so much, because I just want to know, is he going to be one of those players that's going to be able to step in right away? Or is he going to be one of those players that, hey, he's going to be solid, but it's going to take him a little bit to get there? Because that's going to be really important for this offensive line. I will tell you this. I watched the majority of, I didn't get the very, very beginning of the Steelers live show that went on today at 1:30 when practice was going on. There'll be one tomorrow. We're actually running an article tomorrow morning that will say, hey, this is how you can keep tabs on what's going on at training camp. They have one at the beginning. They have one at the end of practice, a show, but they'll actually show you some live look-ins and stuff, but you're not really going to see anything. You're not going to see team stuff. You're going to see some drills and some various different things. Here's what I saw from Kendrick Green. This is what I noticed. I almost put this in the Slack channel, but I'm not going to. That's how the staff at BTSC communicates. And it was this. He was wearing what I would basically call runner shorts. Those kind of shorts. They're not like the skin tight spandex, but they're much shorter. They weren't like the other guys that they came down to your knees. He had the
John Stocktons on.
Yeah, basically the John Stocktons. That's what he was wearing. And
that's funny, because before you started saying that, your buddy Chris said that.
Chris saw that today too. Because I was like, did you see that dude's quads? I didn't really see from behind. I just saw from the front his quads and his legs. See those ham hocks of that guy. And I'm like, if he has legs like that and he can move at that center position like the Steelers like to move their center, then it all makes sense as to why the Steelers, wanted to make sure they grabbed him as late as they could, but early enough to make sure that they got him on the team, because that's one of the first things I noticed. Because like Chooks, he was wearing more like the tight athletic shorts and everything, that you could see his legs. But Kendrick Green, you could see this, you could see the ripples in the skin because of the Stockton shorts. It was great. So you were at work, I'm sure, and you probably didn't get to catch that, did you?
Maybe.
Yeah, Jennifer says KG bringing out the Daisy Dukes. Hey, Kyle, yeah. I love it. Quadric Green. Yes. If you saw that today, you would see why it was Quadric Green. That was pretty impressive. So I want to see what he can do in the pads on the NFL level. Can he make the calls? And you're like, well, couldn't you make the calls in shorts? Yeah, but when guys are coming at you with pads, your calls have to be even a little bit better. So there's a lot for him to do.
And look, I was excited about this guy when we drafted him. I mean, gee whiz, draft night when they show him, after he gets off the phone, Steelers, and he throws down the sunglasses and he's going nuts and all that, just his intensity. It was like, this is a guy that is just ready to bring it, and was probably thrilled with the history, of this position with the Steelers, and that he was going to get a chance to, potentially put himself right in there with those great discussions of, Pouncey and Dirt Dawson and Mike Webster. I mean, when you're looking back at 3 guys through the history of your team that are those names, and thinking, whoa, they thought enough of me that they think I can be that next guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I got to get to work.
I got to get to work. And he seems like that kind of guy. Now, again, put the pads on and show us.
Yeah.
Grab the bull I want to see him grab the bull by the horns, and I want to see him win this position.
Okay. Jeff uses that term as well. I was listening to it again. I know he used it with last week of the preview as well, but I'm sorry. Anytime you hear grab the bull by the horns, what do you think of?
I'm sure it's a movie of some sort.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what's that painting? Oh, that's me grabbing the bull by the horns. Literally grabbing the bull by the horns. It's from Dodgeball. It's bad stuff.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. He has the painting of him from what is it, Globo Gym or whatever it is.
Globo Gym.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, that's me. That's me literally grabbing the bull by the horns. That's just like, that's what comes onto mind every time I hear that phrase. But this has been a lot of fun running down these names just to make sure. We're going to just recap real quick. Yep. Rich went offensive line early, but he went, it's funny. You had we covered all the linemen together, but you went Dotson, Chooks, Banner, Freiermuth, and Harris. So not only did you do that, you went offensive line, the tight end to go with them, and the running back. I went Pierre, Turner, Brooks, Bush, and Green. Because I threw in some of the defenders and everything. Yours were all on offense. That's pretty nifty.
Pierre and Bush were on my list, but
But also notice who we didn't talk about. We didn't go too much into the defensive line because I think they're one of the most known things that we have. I mean, I'd like to see what Loudermilk can bring, but he's going to be buried on that depth chart for a while. We talked about outside linebacker. I had Melvin Ingram on my list, but we didn't get to him because once again, he's one of those guys that how much are they really going to get him going? You know, coming off injuries, they're concerned, new to the team.
New face to the team. Got to see how he fits in.
Yeah. So he's another one. But notice some people had these in the live chat. We didn't list any wide receivers.
Nope.
Because to me, the wide receivers are going to give you just, granted, I do want to see when the wide receiver can go out there and lay a block and things like that. That's great. But when you really want to see what you have for the season, what you're seeing in shorts is going to still give you a pretty good indication as to what you're going to see in pads, where in other positions it doesn't matter as much. In my opinion, like when you're talking like, oh, we're playing some 7-on-7 football and everything, we're like, you're not going to learn much from the line. You know what I'm saying? In that kind of setting, but you do learn a lot about your passing game there. So some very good stuff. Rich, anything else you want to say before we do our final question?
No, I'm pretty good with where I was at. I was pretty happy with our list. We were both, what did we do? We started each with 10 and then we each kind of had an idea of 10 and drafted out. And, we pretty much, of our 10, we matched most of them.
Yeah, we did. We matched a lot of them. That's why we didn't have many players left there at the end, because you're like, all right. So like your number 3 was actually your number 5 and stuff like that. So it was pretty good stuff. So let's go big question, right? You ready for it? Well, right now you're fixing your mic, so you're muted. So that's okay. So I'm ready for the big question. And we should know what the big question is going to be. The big question is going to be what we were talking about. It's going to be, who do you want to see the most in pads tomorrow at practice? I just entered it onto the live chat. It should be in both Facebook and YouTube. So if you list out the name you want to see, we'll bring it up on the screen. If you put a bunch of other stuff, chances are we're not going to read it as we zip through these. But we'll see. Who do you want to see what they can do once they get in the pads tomorrow? So here we go. Okay. Lee Bruce, he's the first one in here. He says Najee. Yeah. So I think that's a good one. Or here, Michael O'Malley, he said Green, then Harris. He basically took our top 2 in which order he wanted to go with it. Jennifer says Muth, which I think we're going to get to say that at the stadium this year, don't you? Oh, that's right. You're still muted. You're still on mute. So let's see if I can try to unmute you here. Here we go. They say that you're right now, Rich, your mic is not connected. So I'll just keep rolling on with this with Muth. Okay. Brian Blackstock, he says quadrant green. Oh man, Kyle, I think you're on it. I think you started it. It jumped on me here. Richard says the whole O line, which we put them all on the list.
We covered.
Okay? Hey, there you're back. Yeah,
yep.
And you're back. Okay. Kyle says Tomlin. He could give those guys a run for their money. He wants to see Coach T in pads. I'll be honest with you. There was many times when I was coaching high school football, I'm like, man, just for one practice, because that happened to me in high school once. One of our assistant coaches, like our last practice of the season, my junior year, they dressed. He was a college assistant. No, not your old roommate, but a different one. And they put him in pads for a practice, and we got to hit him. It was great. I would just jump in and block people without pads, but it would have been nice to just do that one time. Young boy says, "Oh wait, it didn't show up for me." Trying to bring it up. There we go. All right. Young boy says, Highsmith. That's a good one. Kathy Forrest says green. Mike Smith says McFarland because he's still an unknown. Okay. I can see that. Okay. Johnny, I'll bring it up anyway. He says everyone. Yeah. Why not? He's like, everything's different in pads. Okay. Brian Brown, he says Pierre. Okay. That he was on my list. So that makes sense. Awesome Stuff says Muth. Okay. Demetria said to pick someone different. Spillane. Okay. You know,
because he's basically your buck backer now.
I want to see Spillane and Bush next to each other the first chance I can in a game because they have single digit snaps together on defense on the field at the same time. So just want to see how that, and I'm not even saying they were lined up both the linebackers. I'm just saying when they were on the field together. Steelers Pittsburgh says Pierre. Tyler W says Bush. Okay. Christopher Rudisil says Bush, hopefully with no hesitation. Exactly. That's what we want to see from Bush, is that he's out there and he is back and recovered. Young Boy 24 says Ant Mac Jr. Okay. Are some of these guys giving us multiple names? Because Michael, you already gave us two. But yeah, actually, Buddy Johnson, he was the last guy on my list when we did stuff that I never got to. Okay. Oh, come on. You can't just keep listing.
Yeah, Young Boy just keeps listing people.
He just listed more people. Okay. And Russ says Najee. So that's another one. So there's some really good players to look for. It's just going to be different. It's different football. It's a different atmosphere. And I love that even though they were at Heinz Field today, that their first padded practice is the first practice with people there to watch.
Yep.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So, Rich, anything you want to say here at the end before we get going?
No. Well, okay. I'm sorry that the Steelers are, having practices at Heinz Field because I will not be attending because I was set to go to Latrobe at some point, but will not be taking the time to go to Heinz Field because I'm going to Heinz Field for games.
There you go. And speaking of which, I have a few games available if anyone's interested in purchasing some tickets. I have tickets to the, let's see, what do I have left? I have the Chicago Bears game, I have the Cleveland Browns game, and I have the Tennessee Titans game. So if you are interested in purchasing any tickets to those games, my tickets are in the lower deck end zone. I'm 15 rows back, just outside of the uprights, looking at the ketchup bottles. With having the coach's view, you can reach out to me. My Twitter's there on the screen. It's STLR Superfan Dad, or you can just add @gmail.com to that, and that's my email. So if you're interested in those, I prefer to not sell my tickets on Ticketmaster because they take so much from me and so much from the person that buys it. And I'm like, I would much rather say, hey, let's look at what they're going for on Ticketmaster after, with all those fees, and let's both save some money. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of why I looked at that. So if you're interested in any of those games, I know 2 of them are Monday night games. Just reach out to me. And
well, then if you're plugging yours, I'll plug mine.
Go ahead and say which ones you know.
Yep. I've got some games I'm trying to unload. Potentially the Bengals, Broncos, or Browns.
Bengals, Broncos, or Browns. So yeah, it's one of those things that you know that you're going to probably go to one of those games, but it depends on which game you go to. Might depend on
correct
what somebody else
might want.
Like.
Those three are available.
Yeah.
My other game that I have from my group, of course, I got all the B teams, is the Bears, but
and you're going to
go see the Bears.
So
we know somebody that plays for the Bears.
If you want my Bears tickets, there's a possibility you could even maybe try to meet up with the Big Bro Scho, who will be at that game, but sitting higher up there. Okay.
Yeah, my tickets are other same end zone as Dave's, other side and up in the top level.
When you say other side of the upright, not the other end, but yeah, like
the other side of the end zone.
Yeah. So
you're on the left, looking at the field. You're on the left side. I'm on the right side.
Yes. So if a kicker misses a kick towards me, they missed it away from you.
Yes,
that's a good way to put it. So yeah, go ahead and reach out for those if anyone are interested.
And my Twitter's here as well. It's just at Big Bro Scho.
Yeah, there you go, at Big Bro Scho. Yep. So with that, we'll be back next Tuesday night. Hopefully not as late because are the playoff games done? Or you don't know yet?
If we're into next week would be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, not Tuesday, Thursday.
Yay!
This week was Tuesday, Thursday. Next week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So we're good.
All right. So
at least that's what they told me.
That's what they told you. So we should be back at the typical 9 p.m. time slot. Hey, make sure you're checking it out. We've got some of the new audio podcasts coming out. I'm pretty sure the Fantasy Football Fix is starting this week. We are gauging those, we're stepping them in little by little from now through the end of August. Some of those new shows. Jeff Hartman outlined all of them on his Let's Ride. So if you're not part of the Ride or Die crew, you need to be. You need to get on the audio only podcast. Just go search anywhere where the podcasts are available. Search Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain. You bring that on the screen and get me laughing.
That's right.
Go ahead and read it.
Kathy was worried I was set up tonight. See you next week. Sorry, Kathy, we would never stand you up.
Yeah. And we did tweet from the BTSC account that we were going to be after 9:30. We did that around 9:00 in case.
Hashtag blame Kyle.
Hashtag blame Kyle. So make sure you're checking out those anywhere where you can get podcasts. Just search for Behind the Steel Curtain and you can find them. That's the regular morning shows. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Jeff Hartman's Let's Ride, Michael Beck's Live Mike on Tuesdays, My Stat Geek on Thursdays. Then you also have the War Room in there and the new shows coming out. We'll continue to have our live shows. We're going to have to adjust some things next week because of there being a game on Thursday. But I have yet to be told that Scho Bro Show will be anything other than Tuesday at 9:00. If that changes, we will have to make sure that we get that out to you. But other than that, we're going to keep bringing all this content. It's here. The off season is over. The preseason is upon us. And next week, we are going to be previewing, well, not really previewing, but we will be discussing, I can't say previewing because that's for the Steelers preview. We will be discussing the game that will be ready to take place just 2 days after our next show. So we will be discussing about the Steelers being on the field against another NFL team. What do you think about that, Rich?
I can't wait.